Help is on the way. Ready to go now. Yes, yes. The vibes got me moving so much, yo. I forget I have a show to do. What's up? What's up, everybody? It's Suzette Speaks Show live every Thursday and Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. I'm just vibing out. Big up to the strong one, Itana. Big up to gentlemen. Yes, help is on the way. We're here to help you get through your Friday. Welcome, everybody. It's good to be here. It's a beautiful day. Fantastic Friday. We call it Fridays around here because the music, the vibes, and like what I'm about to do, the discussions are always fire. Yeah, man. So we're getting ready to talk about the hot topics of the week. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm Suzette Speaks. I am an attorney. Yes, I help people with their personal injury matters as well as medical malpractice. And I also love to help the community any way I can. You'll see me out and about. I have so many events coming up. I just want to give you a quick rundown of what's going on in the community this weekend so that you can stay connected. I know sometimes the news can be overwhelming and there are times that we want to tune out, but I want to encourage you, my brother. I want to encourage you, my sister. Don't tune out. We don't want to become, what's say, weary in our well doing. That's what the old folks used to say. Don't become weary in your well doing, right? There is a strategy, I believe. And first of all, let me just give it a disclaimer. So I like to do hot topics, social media trends, news stories that are creating a buzz, and just give you some information because I know everybody's busy working and you're not always able to keep up. So I get that, right? No judgment. Big up everybody watching online. You guys don't know, if you don't know, we have an app you can download, and I can see you also on my Suzette Speaks YouTube page. Big up Smooth Approach. Everybody watching online, big up yourself. Hit the like button. Wagwan, wagwan. I see you guys. Thank you so much for watching. When I'm rushing here, you know, I'm an attorney by day, like for real. And when I'm rushing here, big up Mikey Mike as he saw me as a whirlwind come into the office, getting ready for my show. I'm always prayerful, always mindful, trying to figure out what am I going to bring to people, what am I going to talk about. Of course, I want to talk about what is making headlines and what's making news. So, as I was going down today's rundown, of course, topics include the cracker was removed from the barrel. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The cracker got removed from the barrel. Now, I'm not a big, all right, if you don't know what I'm talking about, hint, 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 it's a restaurant, hint, 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 and it has been making waves on social media due to a change in a logo. And if you don't know what I'm talking about yet, it's this southern themed restaurant called Cracker Barrel. And they have rolled out a new logo. I'm not a big Cracker Barrel aficionado. I have not eaten there. I couldn't even tell you. I probably ate there several years ago, right? And maybe I've eaten at Cracker Barrel maybe 3 to 4 times my whole life, maybe five. I'll say five, but I don't think it's even five. If you've never been to a Cracker Barrel, the one I go to or the one I've been to most recently actually was on the west coast of Florida. I was on my way back down from a conference in Tampa, and I stopped at a Cracker Barrel, and that might have been in Naples, Fort Myers area, and it was like, okay, we just need a hot meal. We were so hungry coming down back to Miami. I was just like, I need something to eat. They're like, okay, the rest stop says Cracker Barrel. We're like, okay, we'll get out of the car. It was me, and I think it was two of my homegirls, my fellow lady lawyers coming back home. And yeah, I never really got the hype about the Cracker Barrel food. Some people, I guess, must love it because it's been in business for so long. But yeah, they have rebranded their logo. Now, if you don't know what cracker in the terminology Cracker Barrel, again, this is Voice of the Caribbean. We cater to a Caribbean American diaspora, right? All around the world, but here, especially in South Florida. So South Florida is not quite the same South in terms of, the American countryside or the American cultural, what could I say, locale called the South. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, anything really south of Orlando, I think is giving a different kind of South because I think it's more of a gateway to South America and the Caribbean. So our version of what it means to be in the South, of course, we do have very strong ties and roots to, I would call it American culture here as well. I'm not sure everybody within this listening community understands and gets what Cracker Barrel is, right, as a cultural phenomenon. So I'm just putting all that out to say, like, you can look it up yourself and kind of do the homework. And I'll put out a nice disclaimer. Big up Mikey Mike, big up Miss Chen, that anything I say on this show is my opinion only. It does not reflect the opinion of station management or ownership. So I guess viewer discretion, they say, is advised. Yeah. So we're here to chat. We're here to talk. We're here to keep it real. I want to talk about Cracker Barrel, a story that I was reluctant to talk about because it did catch my eye yesterday, and I was very intrigued. But part of me feels like it might be a media stunt. So put a pin in the Cracker Barrel logo controversy. The cracker, the older gentleman depicted on the old logo of Cracker Barrel has now been removed. Now, again, cracker is a colloquial term to refer to, and there are people still today that call themselves the Florida Crackers. And these were predominantly men who did cattle driving throughout the central part of the state and owned, farms and did, like I said, cattle rustling. And they used to crack the whip. They say it wasn't only at the cattle, but hey, they cracked the whip, and that's how they got the name cracker. It has become somewhat of a pejorative term. I know growing up here in South Florida, going to school here, there were kids that, called white kids crackers, and it wasn't meant as a term of endearment. It was meant to, an insult for an insult. You call me the N-word, I call you that. So the terminology being in the name even, I think is probably the most challenging part of the problematic, logo, if you will. But they didn't take the name. They didn't take cracker out of the name. They took the gentleman sitting in a rocking chair as part of the logo, leaning upon a barrel. So it's just barrel. There's no cracker anymore. Anyway, you can take a look. There are people that are losing their minds on social media that are saying this is a part of the quote unquote woke agenda, and how it has gone, down the drain. I guess this memory of whatever Cracker Barrel to them symbolizes. So it's very interesting. That is making top news. The other story I wanted to bring to your attention is a pop culture news story. I was talking a lot more seriously about, Mr. Trump and the president stating that he wanted to take away voting. And thank you to the people that's been writing me online, people who follow me on Instagram. Follow me, Suzette Speaks. Follow me on all platforms from Facebook to I don't really tweet that much. Big up everybody watching online. Big up Pastor Damien Blessed. I see you online. Big up Miss Sandy B. La, Wagwan, my sister-in-law, and everybody else watching on the app. Big up yourself. Y'all saw me like a whirlwind coming in here today. It's Fire Friday, but I wanted to come with a couple interesting stories for you. But yes, the main topic, if you missed the show, it's on YouTube. I talked about Trump wanting to get to heaven yesterday. Trump said in an interview with Fox and Friends on Monday, I think it was the day after Monday, it was Tuesday, in an interview when he was asked about trying to broker a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. He stated, and I'm paraphrasing now, that he, if he was able to do that, that would put him up in the ranks of possibly getting to heaven. And I was saying that sometimes when people speak in terms of going to heaven and wanting to leave on a high note, it led to some speculation. Of course, we don't have any evidence of anything wrong health-wise with the president, except for what he had revealed about his circulatory issues when it comes to, his feet swelling and his ankles swelling and, the things that are going on with his legs. But it led a lot of people to kind of question, why is Donald Trump talking about getting to heaven now? So I'm going to leave it there for you. But it was very interesting. The discussion yesterday was very interesting. And I talked about the legal ramifications in terms of who is in charge of the voting system. Can Donald Trump really stop every state from having any form of voting by mail? Can he do that? Well, according to the Constitution, the power of elections lies within the Congress. And of course, we have a decentralized, not that the executive branch runs any type of election. They don't have influence over election on purpose because of the founding fathers. They said the person running for president should not be in charge of conducting the election for the office for which they seek. That was the way it was designed. So now that we have an executive leader, right, a president, someone who holds office in the executive branch of government, trying to insert himself into the discussion about how elections are conducted in this country, it has raised a lot of eyebrows. So we went into some depth with that when President Trump announced Monday on his social media site that he plans to, quote, lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots and voting machines across the country ahead of the next midterm election. Now, speaking of midterms, two things. I was going to digress. Let me digress. So we talked last week about the Texas maps, where there were a group of Democratic lawmakers, right, that serve the state of Texas, that left Texas. And Texas, why? Because Texas wanted to draw new redistricting maps. And in redrawing the maps for how people are elected, they wanted to decrease the number of seats that were held by predominantly black districts and predominantly brown or Hispanic districts. So when they would do that, they would cut out the black districts and add them to a very large, predominantly Republican, majority white, but predominantly Republican district, and dilute the power of the black or brown voting bloc, right? This is what we call gerrymandering. When you hear that word, people are like, what does that mean? Cutting a district out of its natural boundaries, right? Where people within the district have like-minded principles and concerns, right? And may vote together and elect a leader reflecting their values and their principles, instead of keeping the district so that there has a chance that there can be a minority-led district in Congress. They're cutting them up. They're moving them into other districts where the power of that vote, the black majority vote, or in the current district, or the brown majority vote, now becomes diluted and added to a majority Republican district. In other words, there is a political term we use, cracking and packing. They crack up the district, meaning they split it. Instead of one black person having 4 different seats available to them, they now may have 2, and you have elected black officials that have to run against each other because their districts have been stacked or packed into other districts, so that the power that that community once held is diluted. So that is actually happening. Texas lawmakers, since the Democrats returned, and I was telling you yesterday, I'm not sure if I agree fully with the return to the legislature in Texas, because they had run away. Oh God, I hate that word. I'm using the language they're using. God forgive me. They had left the state, because when they use the term runaways, we know that it can be reminiscent of language to describe African American enslaved persons during a time in our country where, by law, you could be hung, you could be arrested, chased down, hunted down, basically, for not wanting to be enslaved. If slavery was so good, and the way they want to teach slavery now, if slavery was so good, why was everybody trying to run away from it and gain their freedom, gain their dignity, gain their autonomy, their self-determination, their own self-respect, their own means of earning a living, their own means of determining what they want their life to look like? Black people wanted that all along. Okay, so get off the soapbox. But I'm just saying, we want to reteach history as if it was something that is to be romanticized. And the Trump administration has done some of that in terms of what they're doing to break down and to review the exhibits in our national museums, including the Smithsonian Museum. But I'm not going to get too deep into it. Let me just talk about Texas real quick before we get into some other hot topics. Texas legislators, the people who serve in the Texas House of Representatives and the Texas Senate, right? Every state has its own house and its own Senate, or version of the 2 houses, right? So in Texas legislators have approved a new congressional map. This is hot out. I'm reading off of the BBC News. This was from yesterday evening, because what happened? The legislature in Texas, the Republican-led now legislatures, the Democrats, had stayed away in order not to grant a quorum, meaning there would not have been enough people to vote in these treacherous maps, these maps that are gerrymandered to give the Republicans an advantage, these maps that are cut up to decrease the influence of brown and black voters and increase the influence of Republican voters, and actually increase the amount of likely wins for the Republicans so that they, in 2026, can win the House of Representatives and be the majority in the United States House of Representatives. That's what this is about, the 2026 elections. This move is influencing that now. So according to the BBC, the Texas legislature has approved new congressional maps designed to give Republicans an edge in next year's what we call midterms, because it's halfway between each presidential election, right? Every 2 years. So most of them fall on a presidential year, but when it's not a presidential year, it's 2 years later, we call that the midterm elections. That's what's going to happen next year in 2026. So they're thinking about 2026 from now and trying to create the map that gives Republicans an advantage from now. Let's hear what happened in Texas, because it can happen in other states. But there's also a governor who I have to give credit, Gavin Newsom, of the great state of California, who's trying to fight back. We'll get to that in a second. But what happened in Texas yesterday was very eye-opening and very troubling for most. Because the legislature in Texas has, as of yesterday, has approved new congressional maps designed to give Republicans an edge in next year's elections for the U.S. House of Representatives. Republicans in Texas and the House of Representatives there passed the new voting lines in an 88-52 vote, creating 5 new Republican-leaning U.S. House seats. United States House of Representatives, not university seats, excuse me. Creating 5, let me read it again. Republicans in the Texas House of Representatives passed new voting lines in an 88-52 split vote, creating 5 new Republican-leaning seats. It followed a 2-week standoff in which Democrats fled the state to stall the vote and rally supporters against the redistricting plan. The maps will now go over to the Texas State Senate, where they are expected to be swiftly approved and then signed off by the Texas Governor, Greg Abbott. The move by Texas has sparked redistricting battles across the United States, and that includes states run by both major parties. President Donald Trump, who backed redrawing the maps to safeguard a Republican majority in the United States House, reacted with the words, "Big, all caps, win for the great state of Texas." Republicans hold a slim majority in the lower chamber of Congress. Right now in Washington, D.C., right now, the president, his party, basically controls the 3 branches, if you will. Based on ideology, many would argue, you have the president, Republican ideology from the White House. You have the Congress, which is majority controlled by Republicans, a slim majority. They're trying to safeguard that majority for the last 2 years of Mr. Trump's presidency, so that next year when we vote in 2026 during the midterm elections, Republicans stay the majority. Because remember, the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate create the budget for the country, right? They're the only people that can pass laws for the country that can further the president's agenda. So they want a Congress in the United States of America in Washington, D.C. to be controlled by their party. So that's why they're starting to look for places like Texas to create maps in the middle of a cycle. Remember, redistricting maps are normally created at the end of each census. In the United States, we count how many people live in our country every 10 years, and normally we get the maps then. Listen, there's so much going on in this Texas fight. I have to take a quick pause for the cause. Don't go anywhere. Keep it locked. There's a lot more. Suzette Speaks Show right after this.
The voice of the Caribbean. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, and YouTube.
Let Broward County Transit take you to the summer fun and experience the natural beauty of South Florida.
How you doing today, guys? Uh-oh. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and I'm going to come back right after this. Thanks for watching. I'm going to come back in